Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Here in this video, we are going to be going over why I believe AMC stock can hit $50 or more in 2024. We will go over when I expect this could happen and why this will ultimately happen. And that's going to be towards the later half of this video. The first part of this video is just going to be giving you the raw numbers, the raw data, where we are currently at, or at least where I think we are currently at in terms of all of this data. So hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this down below in the comment section. Your participation, your opinions, while you may not believe they are valuable, are the most valuable thing in this entire community. Without you, there is no community. Without you, there is no MOS. And without you, there is no, you guessed it, AMC stock. So let's start. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, do what you guys want to do as well. Just comment down below. That's the most important thing. Not for me, but again, for AMC. You commenting down below, odds are this is going to be mean, hurtful, and disrespectful, so it really doesn't do me any good. Hopefully, you guys find solace in that. But nonetheless, first things first, let's run through the data. Now, let's start here with analyzing the option activity and the option chain for this upcoming week. So if you are bullish and looking to the call side, at the $5 call, you do have 13,317 for open interest, 4,000 at the 550, 3,500 at the 6, and then you tinker down from there. So a decent amount of activity at the $5 call. Now, what makes the most difference if you theoretically were hoping to see a continued bounce and a continued rally in AMC stock following the last 2 days, which have been green, very different from what we have seen over the past couple of months now, could be the start of something larger. But what moves AMC the most, besides just people buying the stock and good news, is going to be some of the near-term option activity. For whatever reason or another, I still don't understand it. AMC has a lot of near-term option activity. So these $5 calls expiring by this upcoming Friday are going for 7 cents a piece. That means a break even is $5.07. If you start to see tens of thousands of these being bought, or just thousands of these being bought, and AMC stock gets close to $5 per share and starts to break above $5 per share, which is about 49 cents away from where we currently are, then you will start to see the market makers buying a lot of shares. Currently, as far as the open interest, that would be about 1.33 million shares market makers would be forced to buy if AMC stock broke above $5 per share. Let's say you get another 10,000 contracts or so going into the $5 in the money options. So yes, option activity is an unquantifiable variable that could have an impact on AMC stock this week, or has an impact on AMC stock on a week-by-week basis. So that is definitely something we want to be watching for that could, in the near term, have an impact. AMC stock also, quite a big reason why you have bounced over the last 2 days, about 10%, is the RSI was at a record oversold about 18, 17 and some change there on the RSI. You have since bounced up to about 30. So you're now in a much better spot, but you're still on the oversold side. And if this rally does continue to materialize, that could be good news again in the short term. Now, in the short term, that's one thing. In the medium term, that's one thing. In the longer term, that's another thing. We do have potential risk factors here on the table as well that we will discuss a little bit more in just a few minutes after we run through some of the data here, the raw hardcore data. So as far as the legal numbers, I don't believe these legal numbers. I think, or I say legal numbers, I don't know if that's the right terminology. These are the numbers that we can quantify, that are given to us from government agencies. So take that for what as you will. Who knows? They could be right, they could be wrong. I believe the short interest in AMC is a lot higher than 9.6%. I believe the short interest is likely 200%, or potentially more than that. The dollar amount currently sold short, apparently $106.59 million. Days to cover 1.26, 24.06 million shares currently sold short, 20.32 million shares currently out on loan. Cost to borrow fees about 1.09%, utilization of 34.23%, and a short score of 56.62 out of 100. You do have a cost to borrow max at about 1.78%, so definitely on the lower side for all of these numbers. Option activity over the past this clock is so annoying. You hear that? It's bird calls every hour. is ridiculous. But the option activity you've seen on Friday was about 77.25% to the call side, 22.75% to the put side. So more bullish activity than bearish activity for sure, but still nonetheless, we'll see. It's not a huge indication for what we're going to see next week. Now, for next week's expiration, January 26th, we did have a volume to the call side of 67%, volume to the put side of 33%. So, looking good to start a new week, but nothing, again, that is definitive to say, hey, we're going to have a good or a bad week. Now, last week, we did see about 20,000 calls in the money and about 243,000 calls out the money. In the money puts at 68,000, out the money puts at 43,000. So there is a lot of option activity in general that happened last week. It's unclear how much that option activity rolled over to this week's expiration for January 26th. If a lot of it did, then we're going to see those numbers start to reflect in the options chain coming on Monday. And if, that was a high amount, then it could definitely, again, be one of those variable changes that we will have to account for and potentially cause an even larger bounce. So those are some of those numbers. If we look at the stock twit sentiment and we go pull up AMC, let's see what we're dealing with. And I would expect it to be a little bit better than what we've seen before. Yes, indeed it is. So here today, you are extremely bullish as far as the sentiment at 89. The message volume is extremely low at 20, but yesterday it was at 56. So I think that is a kind of notable. Not exactly sure why the message volume is lower. It is the weekend, so you tend to see lower message volume. Even these videos will get less views on the weekend because, some people are all in, some people are not, some people like to take the weekends, right? And that's totally understandable nonetheless. But not looking all too terrible as of right now. It could definitely be a lot worse. Participation ratio, looks like it might be increasing a little bit. Now the participation ratio is at 41, almost at a normal level. It was at extremely low levels just a couple of days ago, but this bounce has definitely brought out more people into AMC. Now the actual market cap of AMC is $878 million, which again, AMC stock is trading very much at a fundamental valuation. Now, let's get into this whole situation, how AMC stock could rally to $50 or more coming this year. And it comes down to a couple simple things. We know there is $6.2 trillion in money market funds that are, likely to get deployed back into our markets at some point in time. So that $6.2 trillion, it could have a huge effect on our markets. Now, where is this money going to go? I think it really depends on whether or not we avoid a recession. If we avoid a recession, this $6.2 trillion, most of it is probably going to make its way into the broad markets. Now, the broad markets could mean the average stock does well. If we go into a recessionary period, I still think you see a drawdown of this 6.2 trillion in money market funds. But if you do go into recession, it's going to go into Magnificent 7 stocks. That's why Magnificent 7 has done so well over the past 2 years and the broader markets have not. The average stock has not done so well. Small and mid-cap stocks have not done so well over the last 2 years because people are always fearful of this upcoming recession. People think it's the next quarter out and then it gets pushed to the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. Meanwhile, if you have to be invested in stocks, you're taking Magnificent 7 because if you do go into recession, Microsoft's going to do okay. Apple's going to do likely okay. Google's going to do likely okay. Amazon is likely to do okay. You get the concept here. If you have to be allocated, Magnificent 7 is not a bad place to be if you do head into a recession. If we get some kind of clarity in 2024 that we're maybe not heading into a recession, that's going to be great news for a stock like AMC. And part of the reason why your average stocks have not done so well, a stock even like AMC, yes, dilution, yes, there's debt, all of that definitely plays a role, but it's because of this whole recession toss-up scenario. So I think that could have a big boost to AMC stock. Now, here in the near term, exactly that. We have no clarity on a recession or not. We know inflation has been falling, but it recently spiked the last report. So we don't have a lot of clarity on inflation also. But again, the markets are pricing in 5 rate cuts in 2024. Which this just changed from 6 to 5 here today. Now 5 rate cuts has an odds of 33.6%. The odds of 6 rate cuts sitting at 33.0%. So the odds are, a little bit, more so towards 5 rate cuts, which is, ultimately good news heading into January 31st. That means the Fed's not going to need to be as hawkish as maybe they otherwise would have been. So that is definitely important to point out. Maybe a little bit less of a hawkish Fed Jerome Powell coming January 31st. Now, as I said in the last video, we did get some encouraging language from Fed Mary Daly. She said any signs that the labor market could falter could also trigger policy adjustment. So the Fed is basically telling you once things start to turn negative, once things start to look bad, the Fed is going to U-turn quickly. They're going to start cutting rates aggressively. They're going to start, could be quantitative easing here coming pretty soon as well. All of these things will have a very much positive impact on our markets. Now, historically, during election years, you tend to see a very strong second half of the year and a pretty muted first half of the year. A lot of that has to do with government spending more money, campaigns, and overall money starts flowing through the economy a lot faster. Now, for those of you guys in the recession camp for this year, I understand there's a lot of things that point towards maybe we're heading into recession. Yield curve being inverted, bank credit is starting to decline. The M2 money supply is now negative for the first time year over year. It's never happened before. Job openings declining. So many other different things, and there's even more than that. Look at the banks. They're sitting on $700 billion of unrealized losses. There's a lot that is weighing against our markets here. But I'll tell you, if we go into a recession, the Fed and the government are going to do whatever they need to stabilize the situation and see a soft recession, see a very mild recession, or to ultimately avoid that recession headline from ever hitting the news. You would see rates, I believe, go back to 0% before we ultimately see a harsh recession in 2024. Because if we see a harsh recession, then young Biden is not getting reelected. Okay, that's like the worst thing that could possibly happen. So I think there is a silver lining to any potential weakness, but I think in the near term, the Fed on January 31st is a bit of a problem. I also think earnings could be a bit of a problem, but historically speaking, that's actually the wrong bet to make. Now, normally, Magnificent Seven beats expectations over 80% of the time. So, expectations are high this time around, 11% EPS growth in 2024. That's not going to come from top line revenue increases, right? From companies growing their top line revenue. That's coming from layoffs. That's coming from cost reductions, that EPS growth. Could the S&P return 11% EPS growth? Possibly. That's a lot for any normal year. Now, if they somehow do that, great. But I think the expectations might be for a little bit more than 11%. The expectation's 11%, but I don't think 11% is going to justify where stocks are actually at. It could be a, sell the news kind of event coming on earnings. That's going to be this week, and that's going to be next week. So in the near term, I think that's a bit of a problem. I do think we're probably set for some kind of pullback in the broader markets. I mean, look at Chinese stocks. Chinese stocks hitting the lowest levels they have seen since 2009. But I do believe if AMC specifically, with all of that being said, let's recap that. Short term, we're in for a little bit of a problem. Over the next 6 months, 9 months, we're going to see quantitative easing likely starting, the Fed dramatically lowering rates, ultimately likely avoiding a headline recession, and money coming back into stocks. I think that is a recipe for a very strong second half of the year. Now, question is, if that happens, and we don't see dilution or very minimal dilution, then AMC stock probably rallies into the 10s, maybe the teens. If we get a commitment to not diluting shareholders, as I have been vouching for, I believe AMC needs to do this. Honestly, if they wait till the second half of the year, that'd probably be better timing, right? You you get more bang for your buck, if you will, instead of doing that now when the markets are more accommodative. That will go a lot further. But if we get that from AMC, I think AMC has a 10x plus year. $50 per share could be achievable even without a potential massive short squeeze. Because if we think about it, we're at an $800 million market cap. Let's do simple math here. 10x in value, 10x the share price. You're going to be at an $8 billion valuation. Yes, is that high? Of course, but it's not so high that it's like ridiculous, right? Fundamentally speaking, maybe, but it's not like we're talking about going from 5 trillion or 5 billion to 50 billion, right? A 10x from here would be 800 million to 8 billion, not again 5 billion to 50 billion. That's a little bit more on the egregious side. A short squeeze could obviously take us there or whatnot, but I do believe these factors coming together is going to set up for a very strong second half of the year for AMC, and I think AMC stock could hit $50+ by the end of this year. Will we stay there? I don't know. Will it be a just aggressive rally? I don't know. Do we hit 20 or 30 or 40 or 45? I don't know. But I do think $50 could be a target point by the end of this year if all things do go better than planned. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.